First step and call now.
In Northport, Florida, Gabby Petito's parents have filed a lawsuit against the parents of their daughter's killer, Brian Laundrie, claiming Laundrie's parents were planning an escape from the country for their killer's son. Tonight, we take a closer look at the allegations to figure out what Laundrie's parents knew and when they knew it.
I'm asking for help of the family members and friends of the Laundrie family as well. You know, there is a tip line that you can call anonymously. Whatever you can do to make sure my daughter comes home, I'm asking for that help.
In Memphis, Tennessee, the next live trial on Court TV, the murder of NBA star Lorenzen Wright. His wife has changed her stories more than once. What role will she play in this case?
To be frank, I don't want to go into one way or the other about what Cheryl will say or won't say, whether or not she'll testify and those types of things.
On the docket tonight in Palm Beach County, Florida, the killer clown trial. Sheila Keene Warren accused of dressing like a clown and murdering Marlene Warren and then marrying her husband. We have a preview of this upcoming case.
My father told me everything that happened before he died. I knew where the car was. I knew who planned it. I knew where the gun was at.
Plus, the gun used by Kyle Rittenhouse to defend himself during the Kenosha riots is destroyed. Tonight's 13th juror question: does Kyle Rittenhouse need another gun for self-protection? Buckle your seatbelts. This hour of closing arguments starts right now. I'm Vinnie Politan. Thanks so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. And one of the biggest stories of last year, the biggest true crime story, was the disappearance and the murder of Gabby Petito. We all remember what this story was about. And then one of the questions I want to talk about right now is why we were collectively so invested in this case. And a big part of it was the way Gabby Petito was living her life. She was living life on social media. She was blogging and video recording and showing us and taking us along with her in this amazing adventure. And the adventure was, traveling around the country, doing all these exciting things and living the van life. And I think because of how open she was with who she was and what she was doing, when she suddenly disappeared, it became, well, what happened? What happened? She's showing us everything about her life, but what was going on here? What happened to Gabby Petito? Well, she showed us what she wanted to show us, because there was a part of her life that was hidden from all of us. And that was her life with Brian Laundrie when the cameras weren't rolling. I mean, Brian Laundrie played the part on video. I mean, you see, he's like strumming the guitar and, making some nice food and posing for those pictures in the most beautiful places around the country with the young woman that he said he loved. But that's not what was really happening here. I mean, what was really happening was hidden from all of us until we saw the body cam video of what was really going on in the life between Gabby and Brian Laundrie. And the ending to all this is incredibly tragic. But this investment, I think for a lot of people like me, we tended to look at this case, people older like me, through the eyes of Gabby's parents. Because here they were, the parents of this young woman who was missing. And people are wondering, what are they thinking? And you saw and you heard the desperation in their voices. There was a level of anger. There was a level of frustration. But the love that they had for their daughter was so large. And that's what was driving them in this search. And I think for people like me, you're like, I feel so bad for those parents. What can we do for them? And America responded. And people were looking for clues and ended up finding some clues and some tips. But here's the other part of this story that I think really got under the skin of everyone. And it was the reaction of the other parents, the parents of Brian Laundrie. They became the focus of everything because, you know, Brian was gone. He wasn't showing himself publicly. He disappeared. We know what happened to him. Everyone's looking for Gabby. And these parents just remained silent and said nothing, which is fine. You don't have to talk to me. Don't talk to the media. But when the girlfriend of your son, right, is missing, and you say absolutely nothing to those parents, that speaks volumes when you are saying nothing. Like, why wouldn't you say something? Why wouldn't you pick up the phone? Why wouldn't you answer the phone? Why wouldn't you tell them that their daughter was missing? And that was the part of this story that is still lingering tonight, because Gabby Petito's parents have sued Brian Laundrie's parents. And what they want to uncover here really is, you know, what did you know and when did you know it? Let's take a look at the timeline of this entire story. It begins July 2nd. Brian Laundrie and Gabby went on this amazing road trip. Amazing for those of us watching on social media, an absolute horror for Gabby Petito. August 12th, police respond to the calls of the domestic dispute. We've seen those body cam videos out in Moab, Utah. Then it is August 27th. That's believed to be the date when Brian Laundrie murdered Gabby Petito. It is believed on that same day that Brian Laundrie sent a text to Gabby's mother in which he referred to Gabby's grandfather, Stan, by his name. Completely bizarre. She would never do that. And it's believed that on August 28th, that Brian Laundrie advised his parents that he had murdered Gabby Petito. On that same day, the Laundries spoke with an attorney. In the lawsuit, it says, while Joseph Petito and Nicole Schmidt were desperately searching for information concerning their daughter, Christopher Laundrie and Roberta Laundrie were keeping the whereabouts of Brian Laundrie secret, and it is believed they were making arrangements for him to leave the country. These are the allegations in the lawsuit, but there's a lot more to it. Let me bring in Court TV crime and justice reporter Joy Lim Nakrin, who is joining us tonight in studio. Great to see you, Joy. I know you've gone through this.
Yeah.
You've made phone calls. You've gone through the entire case. What else does the lawsuit say about the Laundries, Brian's parents?
Yeah, I mean, well, it goes into a lot of detail about how the Laundries allegedly tried to hide this really important information from the Petito family, that their daughter was dead, and obviously that their own son was responsible for it. You know, you mentioned the important date of August 27th. That is when it is believed that Gabby Petito was murdered. The following day, August 28th, is when it's believed that Brian actually told his parents. Well, after that, on September 10th of 2021, according to this lawsuit, in an effort to avoid any contact with Nicole Schmidt on or about September 10th, Roberta Laundrie blocks Nicole Schmidt on her cell phone, such that, quote, you know, this is according to the lawsuit, neither phone calls nor texts could be delivered, and she blocks her on Facebook. And then after that, on September 14th, 2021, you know, there's a search going on for Gabby. And according to the lawsuit, says with full knowledge that Gabrielle Petito had been murdered by their son, Christopher Laundrie, and Roberta Laundrie, through their lawyer, issued the following statement. It is our understanding that a search has been organized for Miss Petito in or near Grand Teton National Park in Wyoming. On behalf of the Laundrie family, it is our hope that the search for Miss Petito is successful and that Miss Petito is reunited with her family. Remember, that's September 14th. And on August 27th is when it's believed that Gabby was murdered. And then, you know, we look back to what happens after that, right? After we already know that, in retrospect, that Gabby has died on August 27th. And on September 16th, and you're looking at these communications, the Petito family makes an appeal to the public, to the whole world, including to the Laundrie family, basically saying, please, anyone with information, including the Laundrie family, please help us find our daughter. Now listen to what Joseph Petito, Gabby's dad, tells the world, and bear in mind, that it's already been 2 weeks since his daughter died. Let's listen.
I mean, just look at the picture if you can. Memorize it. You know, look at the facial features, you know, and memorize that phone number that you're seeing there too, you know, because we need everyone's help. We don't have a lot of information. So we got a really big area from Wyoming all the way down to Florida and 2,500 miles to you know, that's just the road. Forget everything that's on either side, right? So we need you guys to memorize their face. And if you see something, call that tip line. If you see someone while you're hiking and that looks like Gabby, give her your phone, call your folks, you know, something. We need everybody's help.
So 3 days after that, on September 19th of 2021, that's when the FBI announces that they found remains, which later do turn out to be Gabby Petito's. Let's listen.
FBI personnel, in coordination with our partners at National Park Service, the Forest Service, Teton County Sheriff's Office, and Jackson Police Department, have been conducting an investigative activity in the vicinity of the Spread Creek dispersed camping area. Earlier today, human remains were discovered, consistent with the description of Gabby Petito.
So just imagine, Vinnie, I mean, all of this whole time, you know, the dad's out there asking for everyone's help. FBI is making this announcement. This whole time, according to this lawsuit, the Laundrie parents knew that their son had killed Gabby.
Unbelievable. And they said nothing. They said nothing. So I understand the outrage of all of that, and we were outraged when this was happening. I couldn't understand how parents could remain silent, knowing that someone that was living in their home, someone they had taken under their roof, and like Gabby's parents were like, okay, yeah, you're living with the Laundries, and you know, we trust them, and they broke that trust. But what's the legal claim in this suit, right? Like, you can be angry, you can be outraged, but ultimately you need some sort of legal theory to sue them. So what are they alleging?
Yeah, I mean, it's essentially pain and suffering and mental anguish. From the lawsuit itself, it says as a direct and proximate result of the willfulness and maliciousness of Christopher Laundrie and Roberta Laundrie, Joseph Petito and Nicole Schmidt had been caused to suffer pain and suffering, mental anguish, inconvenience, loss of capacity for enjoyment of life experienced in the past and to be experienced in the future.
It is so sad, but I understand why this lawsuit was filed, and we shall see where it goes. Joy Lim-Nakrin, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Let's bring in our think tank tonight. Joining us in Stamford, Connecticut, criminal defense attorney Darnell Crosland is with us. In Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, family law attorney Jennifer Brandt, and in Englewood Cliffs, New Jersey, criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor Albert Wunsch III. Great to see everyone tonight. This is a heartbreaking case. This is a case that was the biggest true crime story of last year for many different reasons. But let's get to this lawsuit, Darnell. Let's get to this lawsuit. You've got parents that are angry, parents that are heartbroken. What do you think? What sort of legal obligations, legal duty did the Laundries owe to the Petitos?
So thanks for having me tonight. And the first thing that comes to my mind is criminal liability. And that's a high goal. And when I look at this lawsuit and I listen to this case, it reminds me of the OJ case with Ron Goldman. What you couldn't do in a criminal setting, you can do in a civil setting. And in this particular case, it seems like the Laundrie families, if this was criminal, will be an accessory after the fact. But because we can't get that, because it's hard to establish that, they are at least liable for the pain and suffering that the family has endured. And so when look at the lawsuit, they're suing for pain and suffering, mental anguish. And I think if the Laundrie's family knew exactly what they were doing and they were hiding this and putting this family through what they had to go through, they're definitely liable for, in a civil realm, for pain and suffering that they had to suffer.
Jennifer Brandt, you know, on the one hand, you have parents, right? Our first thing is about our kids. But in this case, I don't know how you can sit there and remain silent knowing that a young woman who lived under your roof, a woman that you purportedly loved, a woman that your son allegedly loved before he killed her, is just sitting there. Everyone's looking for her. You know what happened, and yet you say nothing. Is it enough? Is that going to be enough to drag them into a courtroom and win a case?
Yeah, I'm not so sure I could agree with Darnell on this one. I don't know if it is enough, Vinny. I think you hit the nail on the head. The Laundries, their son was the one that killed Gabby Petito, but it's their son, and they have love for him just like Gabby's parents have for her. I mean, no doubt this is a very tragic situation all around, but the Laundries also ended up losing their child. So it's tragic. And were they the proximate cause of the Petito's pain and suffering? I think Brian Laundrie was, if he killed Gabby Petito, for sure. But these parents, I'm not so sure that you can draw that connection. And do we want to draw that kind of connection? I mean, yes, here it's a serious, terrible case, as I said, all around. But do we want to put parents on the hook for all the acts of their children, adult children? So I don't know. I think this is a really tough case. It'll be interesting to see what happens here, and if some law is made.
I can't wait for that deposition. I'll be licking my chops during that deposition. Al Wunsch, what do you think here? If in fact, let's say Brian Laundrie, as alleged in the lawsuit, admits things to his parents when he comes back on the 27th or 28th, they immediately call an attorney. Do they have any obligation to reach out to the Petitos, to reach out to law enforcement if they know that there's a body rotting out in the desert somewhere?
Well, first off, happy Ides Eve, everyone out there. I don't think they have a responsibility to do that. And I don't think it necessarily means that the fact that they called a lawyer is necessarily a bad thing. They may be concerned. They may have confronted their son and said, what happened? And he may not have told them. I mean, I have about 3 or 4 vases in my house that are still broken that nobody has confessed to in my house, okay? My kids don't tell you everything, okay? And in this instance, if they confronted him.
But Al, big difference here, big difference.
It is a big difference.
Gabby and Brian get in a van. They drive around the country. Then a couple months later, a few months later, Brian comes back without Gabby. And by the way, it's Gabby's van. She's not there. He comes to his house. You don't think they ask her what happened? And then they just happen to call a lawyer? Or they just look at it and say, oh my goodness, Gabby's not here. We better call a lawyer, versus let's call Gabby's parents and say, is Gabby there? Come on, Al, a little reality here.
They're scared for their son, but they're scared for their son.
Why?
As any
because
parents would be.
They know.
Well, they might have a suspicion of it. Of course they might. I mean, look, you understand, you can look in your kid's eyes and know whether or not they're telling you the truth. And they may have confronted him and he may not have told them the truth. But any smart person at that point says, we have to prepare for the worst. And they contact a lawyer, hoping to God it's not true. And what are you trying to get from these people? They lost their son also.
Some humanity and
that
decency.
makes it better.
That's what I'm trying to get from them.
What price is decency, Vin? There's no insurance that's going to cover this. What are they going to do? Go after their house? They're going to put them in bankruptcy for this?
Yes.
I mean, let's
I have to
move
agree
on.
with Al on this one. I agree. I think Al is right.
Well, you agree. Then let me hear from Darnell. If you agree, let me hear from Darnell. Go ahead.
We have a saying in the legal field, and it's called assuming arguendo. So assuming that the parents knew, because that's what we have to, wait till the depositions. But at this point, assuming they knew, I just finished doing a legal contributing to the Jussie Smollett case. The idea is to follow the money and see if there's money damages. In the Jussie Smollett case, the city was going after all the money that they had to expend trying to solve that situation. In this particular case, assuming arguendo that the parents knew that she was dead, and they went on the air and they made these false cries for help, and they were causing people to continue to look and to seek answers and to give hope when they knew there was no hope, and they caused all this money to be spent and all this pain and suffering to be had. Wouldn't one argue on that
This is-
side.
this is-
that's
I like that.
new
I like that. We're out of time for this segment, but I like that.
This is no way like that.
Why
at
does
all.
Al always
First
got to
of
get the
all-
last word in? Al, it's over. It's over. We're moving on. You did well, though. Al did well. Jennifer did well. This is a tough issue. This is not going to be an easy case on one side or the other. But Al, you know I got to rein you in sometimes because we got to get to the next story. When we come back, live report from Chanley Painter, the next live trial right here on Court TV. Former NBA star Lorenzen Wright was murdered. What did his ex-wife have to do with it? She's not the one on trial, but she's in prison tonight. Details next.
And try it free for 30 days.
Welcome back, folks. We got a brand new trial starting here on your front row seat to justice. It involves the murder of a former NBA star, Lorenzen Wright. Chanley Painter, Court TV legal correspondent, has the story.
Billy Ray Turner, good morning, sir.
Hello, sir.
Billy Ray Turner is one of 2 accused killers in the murder of NBA star Lorenzen Wright.
The Los Angeles Clippers select Lorenzen Wright from the University of Memphis.
A first-round 7th overall draft pick in 1996, Wright went on to play 13 seasons in the NBA before retiring in 2010. Wright's body was discovered in these woods a few days after his mother reported him missing in July of 2010. According to the medical examiner, he had been shot multiple times, suffering gunshots to the head and chest. His 6'11" frame so decomposed, he weighed 57 pounds at autopsy.
Because he put it on me because he knew I was going to take care of him.
The mystery surrounding his death baffled investigators for years, until a break in the case led to this announcement in 2018.
This morning, the Shelby County Grand Jury indicted Billy R. Turner for the premeditated first-degree murder of Lorenzen Wright.
Turner wasn't the only suspect. Wright's ex-wife, Shira, was also indicted. In 2019, she pleaded guilty for her role in the murder and was sentenced to 30 years in prison. But Turner denies any involvement in Wright's death.
He wants, his day in court.
And so does Wright's mother.
I want a trial because I want to know everything.
Deborah Marion has been waiting more than a decade for answers, but the wait for justice has taken a toll. And at this hearing, she cannot contain her emotions.
How could you have murdered my son? That's what I need to know, just how.
The outburst prompts a sympathetic but stern rebuke from the judge.
Ms. Wright, I understand your pain. You're not doing a member of your son. Good. And you're not helping your son. You're not helping the administration of justice by engaging in that sort of an outburst. Do you have any questions, ma'am?
No, I told him what I want to
But please don't do that again.
Billy Ray Turner faces life in prison if he is convicted of first-degree murder.
And I know that judge understands her pain. He's probably seen it many, many times inside his courtroom. I'm still amazed in how we don't see that in almost every case, every murder trial that we cover, that the loved ones are able to hold it in. Let's bring in Court TV legal correspondent Chanley Painter, joining us live tonight from Memphis, Tennessee. Chanley, great to see you. Let's start first with the latest. I know there was some jury selection taking place today. Where are we?
Well, we have a jury now. After a day of jury selection, here's what the jury of 12 with 3 alternates looks like. We have 8 women, 7 men, Vinnie. Of the women, 5 appear to be black, 3 appear to be white. Of the men, 3 appear to be black, 4 appear to be white. And this jury was impaneled after an afternoon of questioning from the prosecutor, from the defense, prosecution focusing in on conspiracy as its theme so that the jury would understand what it takes to have a conspiracy here in the state of Tennessee. The defense, on the other hand, focused on whether or not they would hold it against Billy Ray Turner for not testifying in his own defense. Now this jury, after being impaneled, will show up here at the courthouse tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. Eastern, for opening statements, Vinnie. And get this, they're going to be sequestered for the remainder of this trial. That means their phones will be taken away from them tomorrow for the duration of this trial. They will be able to call their loved ones at night using a phone provided by the sheriff's office. They will be in a hotel. They do have their own rooms this time, but they will be in a hotel without televisions. And if they want to bring some reading material to pass the time when they don't have a cell phone, they can bring non-crime related materials to read. And so likely, because of this sequestration, we will be in trial this weekend on Saturday and Sunday, Vinnie.
Fascinating approach. All right, let's get to the defendant here, Billy Ray Turner. What exactly is he charged with here?
He's been indicted for 3 felony counts, including the first-degree premeditated murder of Lorenzen Wright in July of 2010, Vinnie. He's also facing the facilitation of first-degree murder. That's that conspiracy count, that conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. And then criminal attempt to commit first-degree murder here. There's allegedly was an attempt on Lorenzen Wright's life in the months and weeks leading up to his actual murder. That's all going to be before this jury. Billy Ray Turner has been incarcerated since he was arrested and indicted in 2017, Vinnie, and he was a former deacon in his church. He was quote unquote, an associate of the ex-wife of Lorenzen Wright, her yard man at the home at the time this all happened. So it'll be very, very interesting. In fact, I think the whole town here is really on pins and needles to hear those opening statements tomorrow to really answer some of these lingering questions that have been nearly 12 years in the making.
I remember covering this so long ago. I am shocked that we finally have gotten to trial here. All right, a couple big names that I think we got to keep an eye open for as we watch this trial. Let's start with Jimmy Martin.
Jimmy Martin is the prosecution's star witness. This morning, the prosecutor telling reporters he will be called in their case in chief. Jimmy Martin, Vinnie, is the one who broke this case wide open. This murder went unsolved for 7 years until Jimmy Martin. So who is he? Well, he's the cousin of Lorenzen Wright's ex-wife, Shira. He was a wannabe rapper, and he's also a convicted murderer. So what we know about Jimmy Martin is that he was on trial in 2009 for the murder of his girlfriend. That ended in a mistrial. So a retrial was had in 2012. He was convicted of second-degree murder, but he was out on bond for those 3 years between the two trials. That is the time that Lorenzen Wright was murdered. A lot of people regret that he was out on bond during that time. We also know that Shira Wright, his cousin, said that her husband paid for Martin's legal fees. May have something to owe her, Vinnie. Well, now Jimmy Martin is pointing the finger at Billy Ray Turner, Shira Wright as the ones responsible for Lorenzen's murder. In fact, Jimmy Martin led investigators to at least one of the murder weapons in this case that he helped dispose of at a lake in Mississippi. And that's what led to all of these arrests.
All right, finally, Shira Wright, what can you tell us about her?
Well, of course, she's the ex-wife of Lorenzen Wright, married for many years. They had 6 children together, actually 7. One passed away very young. And she was divorced from Lorenzen about 5 months before he went missing and was found murdered. She is a co-conspirator indicted here. But, Vinnie, she, to the shock of many, pled guilty in 2019 to lesser counts here. She pled guilty to facilitation of first-degree murder and facilitation of criminal attempt to commit first-degree murder in exchange for a sentence of 30 years with her good behavior, eligibility for parole. Vinnie, she's expected to be out by 2026. But at the time she pled guilty, her attorneys did speak after this, and they said that if she would have gone to trial, she would have pointed the finger at abuse from Lorenzen Wright to her and her children for the years even after the divorce, still would not leave her alone. That's why she hired Turner and Martin to do away with him. Since then, though, she's been incarcerated, Vinnie, she's changed her story several times. She's withdrawn her part in the plot. Even still, she's spending this time behind bars. Not sure, though, if she will actually be a part of this trial and testify against Billy Ray Turner.
All right, Chanley Painter in Memphis tonight. Thank you so much. We'll be checking in every night as this trial begins. Let's bring back in our think tank, Carnell Crossland, Jennifer Brandt, Al Wunsch. Jennifer Brandt, I'm wondering, Shira Wright, what possible motive could someone who's already divorced have to get rid of the ex? Is there an advantage to no longer having your ex around? And your thoughts, because this is your area.
Oh, for sure, Vinnie. I mean,
not murder, but family law. Thank you. Sorry, I want to clarify that.
Thank you, Vinnie. Thanks for that clarification. Of course, I mean, there's so many emotions that run high in divorce cases. And when you have a loving relationship, you know that can turn to hate. And there may be lingering financial connections between these two. Did he have a life insurance policy on his life for her benefit? Was there an incentive for her to want to get rid of him? You know, she claims, or she has said in the past, that he was abusive. I mean, could that be? Is it someone who's a battered woman type of issue going on here? Well, there could be a slew of reasons why she would want her husband to be gone, her ex-husband to be gone. None of them are certainly justification for what she allegedly did, but certainly there's high emotions and could be a lot of lingering anger and upset from the divorce itself and their prior relationship.
Al Wunsch, again, I introduced you, former prosecutor. So how do you get a jury to believe your star witness, the convicted murderer?
Well, it it's very, very difficult to get a silk purse out of a sow's ear. But in this type of a situation, you have to show that, you know, generally murderers don't associate with the best type of people. So, you know, you have to go to bed with dogs and wake up with fleas sometime. But in the end, this is the way we build our case. This is the way we got somebody already in jail as a result of this. This murder was dead. We did not know what was going on. It was a cold case. This man came into the scene and was able to give us the information necessary to get one person to plead guilty. And now we're going to need him again to get somebody else. It's not pleasant. These aren't the type of people that these nice jurors would be socializing with. In the most instances, that type of people that the prosecutor would be socializing with. But you have to build your foundation with even the rotten bricks in order to get the conviction.
All right, Darnell Crossland, Shara Wright, the ex-wife. I know everyone watching this trial wants to hear from her. I think that includes the 12 jurors will want to hear from her. Do you think she takes the stand? And if so, what is she going to say?
Well, you know, that would all depend on where her loyalties lie. In this particular case, I'm looking at this saying, as a defense attorney, if this woman is going to tell us what premeditation means, which is that there was a plan, that there was an intent to kill, there was reflection according to Tennessee law. If she's going to tell us what those conversations were and what those plans were and what those reflections were, then I don't see how the defense is going to get around that. But if her loyalty doesn't lie towards Lorenzen, then maybe she's going to not share those reflections. And then the prosecution is going to have a harder time coming up with intent to kill or motive, at least. We know with the amount of gunshots that Lorenzen suffered from, there was definitely an intent to kill there. The question is why, and was it premeditated? Did something else happen? So I'd be very interested in finding out from the wife where her loyalties lie, and will she share with us what those conversations were that led up to this shooting.
Yeah, I want the jury to hear from her. Every trial is a search for the truth. I think her getting on the stand, whether they believe her or don't believe her, will help this jury get there on that journey. All right, Think Tank staying with us, still ahead.
On the docket tonight in Palm Beach County, Florida, the killer clown trial. Sheila Keene Warren accused of dressing like a clown and murdering Marlene Warren and then marrying her husband. We have a preview of this upcoming case. Plus, the gun used by Kyle Rittenhouse to defend himself during the Kenosha riots is destroyed. Tonight's 13th juror question: does Kyle Rittenhouse need another gun for self-protection?
9.
On the docket tonight, the killer clown trial. Ted Rowlands has the story.
It started out as a typical day for the Warren family living on this quiet street in Wellington, Florida, an equestrian community just north of Miami.
That morning, I do remember we were eating breakfast. Nice, calm Saturday, I believe it was.
Joe Aarons was 21 years old at the time. He will remember that Saturday for the rest of his life. It was May 26, 1990. A clown carrying balloons and flowers came to the Aarons' door. Joe's mom, Marlene Aarons Warren, reached for the flowers and was fatally shot twice in the face.
It was one of the worst days of my life.
Aarons heard the gunfire and ran to find his mother in a pool of blood. He saw the clown walk away and disappear into a white car, but had no clue who the killer was, and neither did police. The case would go cold for decades. Then, finally, after 27 years, a break. Advanced DNA testing led authorities to Sheila Keene Warren.
Testing has evolved over time, and there were apparently some pieces of evidence that they wanted to re-examine, and they sent it to an FBI lab. And it's unclear which part of that led to the arrest, but something stuck. And that's how they were able to make the arrest.
Keene Warren was living in Virginia. She was arrested and charged with first-degree murder for the shooting death of Joe Aarons' mother, Marlene Warren.
I could not grieve because there was no closure in the case.
Authorities suspected Sheila was having an affair with Marlene's husband, Michael Warren. Michael and Sheila eventually married in 2002. She was living with him at the time of her arrest. The trail that led investigators to Sheila Keene Warren contained many twists. One of them, a deathbed confession from John Moran. A family friend, John Moran passed away, but before he died, he shared a secret with his son, John Moran Jr.
My father told me everything that happened before he died. I knew where the car was. I knew who planned it. I knew where the gun was at.
John Moran Sr. worked with Michael Warren, who was married to the victim. Warren was questioned by police but never charged in his wife's murder. He was a used car dealer who was later arrested on charges of grand theft, odometer, tampering, and racketeering. Warren's friend, John Moran, told his son before he died that Warren may have had something to do with his wife's death.
On his deathbed, he told me that car would get me anything I ever wanted from Mike Warren.
Moran Jr. told detectives that Michael Warren tried to bribe him. Investigators followed up on details Moran Jr. gave them, including information about what could have been the killer clown's getaway car. John Moran Jr. said his dad told him where some of the evidence was kept. Police went diving in a Palm Beach canal where Moran Jr. says he and his father helped dump the evidence. However, investigators did not find the clown costume or murder weapon. Without that evidence, police can't make a case for murder against Sheila Keene Warren, according to their lawyer.
I do know enough about this case, not from the discovery process, but from my knowledge of the case, that she's innocent.
All right, folks, coming to you late spring this year, June 3rd, 2022, Florida versus Sheila Keene Warren, the killer clown trial right here on your front row seat to justice. When we come back, folks, Kyle Rittenhouse back in the news. I don't have to remind you who he is, right? But do you see what he's holding in his hands right there? That's his gun. I've got video of that gun being destroyed. I'll show it to you when we come back.
Smith & Wesson M&P.
All right, folks, what you're watching is the destruction of Kyle Rittenhouse's AR-15. They're going to put it into this machine that will obliterate it. Take a look here and watch it. There it goes. This is something that Kyle Rittenhouse wanted and was agreed would be done. That AR-15 that he used to defend himself during the Kenosha riots is gone. I posted all of this on social media and asked you a very specific question, which was, do you think Kyle Rittenhouse needs another gun? Not does he have the constitutional right to have one. We've all read the Constitution. We know he does. Not should he have another gun, but does he need one? Does he need one? We begin with our 13th juror comment of the day from Lisa, who says, tonight, let's take a look at it. Kyle Rittenhouse needs another gun, just like all the rest of us need a gun that are able to own one. Be ashamed not to be able to protect yourself or gather food if need be. Why suffer if you don't have to? Guns are not always a bad thing. Let's bring back in the think tank Darnell Crossland, Jennifer Brandt, Al Wunsch with us. Al, I'll start with you. Again, specific question, not does he have the constitutional right, but do you think he needs a gun?
No. I don't think anyone really needs a gun. It's ridiculous. But, you know, the interesting thing is that gun could have been worth a lot of money. Jack Ruby's gun went for $220,000 in auction in 1991. And today, Vin, is very significant for Court TV because today was the first televised verdict of a trial, which was Jack Ruby's trial in 1964 on this day. So very significant for Court TV.
Yeah, I would say I remember it, but I don't. I don't remember that.
I'm sorry.
A little too long ago for me, but that is significant. And that was one of the reasons Kyle Rittenhouse said he wanted to get rid of it because he is the one who wanted it destroyed and his law enforcement took care of it. Here's what Sarah is saying tonight. Sarah says, no, he's done enough damage. I'm glad that the gun had been destroyed. Darnell Crossland, do you think he needs another gun?
Well, he absolutely doesn't need another gun. But here's the interesting thing. At the conclusion of any criminal trial, wherever there's property in the file, you hear the clerk always say, Your Honor, there's property in the file. If there's co-defendants, the property is marked over to the co-defendants. If it's contraband, the judge says no claim. And if the person was exonerated, they have a right to have their gun back. Now, I can tell you there's two types of ARs, two main types, the SAG and the Smith & Wesson M&P. I have both of them. And the M&P is very expensive. So the fact that Kyle Rittenhouse decided to have that gun destroyed tells me that he knows that the facts of this case stink. If he was to take that gun back, the world would be upset. And he did the right thing to have that gun destroyed. He doesn't need it. He was too young when he had it. He crossed state lines with it. And the best thing to do was to destroy that gun today. And to me, he was exonerated. Doesn't mean that he was innocent, but he was exonerated. And he didn't want to add salt to the wounds by taking that gun back.
Ooh, Darnell, I might have to use that soundbite against you sometime when you said a criminal defendant was exonerated doesn't mean he's innocent, because I say it all the time, but okay, I've got you on record now. All right, let's go to MJ tonight. Is this supposed to appease us because the killer didn't get locked up? Jennifer Brandt, your thoughts about the video we just saw of the AR-15 being destroyed?
Well, I think it was a good move by Kyle Rittenhouse because I don't think he needed the gun, that gun or any other gun. It caused him a lot of grief. It got him involved in a long trial. A lot of things happened because of that gun. So I don't think he needs it. And I think it was a very smart decision to have it destroyed.
Nancy,
in fact, he probably could have made some money, according to Al.
Yeah, he could have. He didn't want any part of that. Nancy tonight, yes, why wouldn't he? I'm sure the haters still hate him. Al Wunsch, do you think there's a target on Kyle Rittenhouse, or do you think he can live the rest of his life peacefully away from anyone trying to go after him?
Well, the fact that he didn't want to keep this gun is a step in the right direction, Vinny. So I have to say that maybe he's seen the light. I know he is suing like all these different celebrities for saying nasty things about him and things along those lines. But the fact that he didn't keep this gun where he could have made a nice profit, I'm sure the Proud Boys would have been very happy to have it, demonstrates to me that maybe he's on the right track.
All right. Great job tonight. Darnell Crossland, Jennifer Brandt, Al Wunsch. Thank you all so much. We'll see you again really, really soon. Appreciate your time and your expertise. When we come back, one of the cases we've been following here on Court TV, that home invasion in Kentucky, ended up in a gun battle. The defendant in court. This is the guy who went into that house looking for a doomsday bunker. More next.
Gutter inspection and estimate.
In Madison County, Kentucky, Shannon Gilday is accused of a home invasion and murder. The alleged motive, a doomsday bunker at the house he was invading. Tonight, new details from his interrogation.
He told me that he was willing to kill everyone inside the residence if necessary in order to access that bunker.
In tonight's Unsolved Case file in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, the murder of musicians Lala Brown and Jatani Kool-Aid Claiborne, a singer and her producer, gunned down inside their recording studio in 2007. Someone knows something, and tonight we're asking for your help. In San Diego, California, officers executing an eviction notice are confronted by a woman with a large knife. We break down this intense video with our own law enforcement experts.
Put the knife down right now or I'm gonna put your knife down. Put the knife down.
And in Flagler County, Florida, first responders at the scene of a suspected arson are attacked by the suspected arsonist. We take a closer look during crime time.
That's the wrong answer, sir.
Buckle your seatbelts. This hour of closing arguments starts right now.
I'm Vinnie Politan. Thanks so much for joining us here on Closing Arguments. And on this program, we focus on some tough material. Obviously, we're talking about crime and justice, true crime, missing persons, murder cases, very emotional trials. And it can take a toll. It absolutely can take a toll and does take a toll on the people directly involved in all of these cases, investigations, and trials. But there's something else that's happening right now, and I mean, it's obvious, right? I turn on any of the other news channels that exist. They're showing us this 24/7 nonstop coverage of a war that is being played out in real time on video with horrific images, some very gloomy type of potential predictions on what can happen and what it all means. And it's affecting a lot of people. It can affect your mood. And for people who already are suffering from some level of mental illness, it can have an even greater impact. And that's part of this story that we're going to talk about tonight. It's a case that we have been covering out of Kentucky. It was the wee hours of the morning when someone broke into a home, engaged in a shootout, killing a young woman, her father fighting off the home invader with his own gun, and eventually a suspect was caught. And that suspect ended up in court. We learned a lot more about the suspect through some testimony, through investigators, et cetera. Michael Burke from our great affiliate WLEX in Lexington, Kentucky, has the details for us tonight.
A preliminary hearing for Shannon Gilday revealed that the home of former state representative C. Wesley Morgan, and not necessarily any one person, was Gilday's target all along.
He told me that he was willing to kill everyone inside the residence if necessary in order to access that bunker.
Last month, Kentucky State Police charged the Northern Kentucky resident with home invasion and murder after he found his way into the Morgan's home and allegedly shot and killed Morgan's daughter, Jordan, a Lexington attorney and staff member of former Governor Matt Bevin. Gilday spent several days on the run, even leaving the state, apparently. Soon after his arrest, a confession during questioning, several of them actually.
He confessed to shooting his way into the residence at 1266 Wells Bridge on the morning of February 22nd, armed with an AR-15 rifle. He confessed to shooting Jordan Morgan numerous times in her bed. He confessed to shooting Wesley Morgan.
According to police records and results of a search warrant of Gilday's home in Northern Kentucky, those close to him say he was frightened by the events taking place in Ukraine, indicating that was the reason he was seeking shelter inside a bunker. He'll remain at the Madison County Detention Center as the grand jury looks at the evidence.
So incredibly tragic for that family. But as you heard, apparently the target was not anyone in the home, but the home itself, because it had this elaborate doomsday bunker, which was, you know, when they built the home, this was one of the things that they built along with it. You know, and the irony is you build something like that to protect your family, to save your family, And in this case, it ended up being the motivation for some deranged person to come into the house firing the gun. Really a tragic story, but let's get to the bottom of it because there's several different layers of this I want to talk about tonight. Let me bring in our guest. Joining me in New Haven, Connecticut, retired FBI special agent, senior lecturer at the University of New Haven, Kenneth Gray is with us. In Salt Lake City, Utah, private investigator Jason Jensen, and in Los Angeles, California, forensic psychiatrist, trial expert witness, and columnist, Dr. Carol Lieberman with us as well. Kenneth Gray, let me begin with you tonight, and let's start with this confession. You're tracking a suspect. You know who the person is that you want to track him down. You find him. You get him into custody. How do you get him to talk? How do you get him to admit these things? Because by doing so, you are setting up the case for prosecutors like me. You're giving it to us on a silver platter.
So it really depends upon the person. Sometimes the person wants to tell their story. Sometimes you have to build rapport with that person to be able to get them to talk. Sometimes a person won't talk at all. So it really depends upon the suspect as to whether or not they're going to confess to you.
How about someone like this? Yeah, someone like this who has, it seems from the outside looking in, he's got, and according to his mother, also some level of mental illness going on.
Yeah. So that can be a good thing. It can be a bad thing. The fact that he has some level of mental illness going on, it may complicate the matters as far as whether or not he knowingly waived his rights. If he was represented, I'm sure that his lawyer would not have allowed him to talk to the police at all. So you know that it will eventually become a question, I think.
Jason Jensen, in tracking him down, it seems that he was, traveling all over the place. They found him, took him into custody without much resistance at all. Did that part of this case surprise you because of the nature of this alleged, the nature of the attack that took place that he allegedly confessed to?
Right. It is very surprising to most of us because you would think he basically got caught and thwarted from killing everybody in the home, trying to get to the bunker. So rather than fleeing the county, fleeing the area, he's found walking nonchalant on the side of the road. That surprised even the officer that picked him up. Was doing a community care team function by wanting to know if he's okay, because it was like 20 degrees, if I recall correctly. So wanted to know if he was okay. He got in the car, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, things unfold, and he realizes he's got the suspect in his car.
Dr. Carol Lieberman, I want you to listen to what Detective Cameron Allen from the Kentucky State Police testified to in court during this hearing, and really giving us an outline in some of the details of what this suspect was doing prior to that home invasion and the motivation behind it all.
Stated that he was aware that the residence at 1266 Wills Branch was occupied by residents that owned the property. He stated that he had prepared himself to have to force his way into the residence by whatever means necessary. He had done surveillance of the property on multiple occasions prior to the event, had tried to access the bunker through a tunnel entry that he located, but he was unable to do so, and then of course made the decision that he was going to have to access the bunker by going into the residence and forcing his way in. He told me that he was willing to kill everyone inside the residence if necessary in order to access that bunker.
Okay, Dr. Carol Lieberman, some words really jump out to me there. He was willing to do, by any means necessary, get himself into that bunker. He had done some surveillance of this and had attempted to get to that bunker by digging a tunnel to access it. And when that didn't work, he was basically content with going in there and just killing everyone that was in his way. These are disturbing facts, obviously. What do they tell you about his mental state at this time?
Well, when we first learned about this case, it seemed more clear-cut that, yes, indeed, so it seemed that he had a mental illness. At the last time we talked about this, I said maybe first break schizophrenia or drugs, and that he was, desperate to get to this bunker and so on. But then, since then, there have been lots of other things that have come out that make you wonder just how relatively innocent, or how it was not just about getting to the bunker. If he was doing all this surveillance, for example, like supposedly he was keeping track of who sleeps where and what time they go to bed and all of that. So he would have known, for one thing, when he climbed up that scaffolding, whose room he was going to get into. This question of, was it pre-planned? Like, in other words, how much was it psychotic? How much did he know what he was doing, and how much really was it a psychosis? And then it's turned out that there was another crime that he committed in 2020, where he stole $13,000 worth of equipment from the driver's license bureau so that he could make fake IDs. And the thing that really gets to me is that his family turned him in then, and they sent DNA to the FBI, and which still hadn't come back. The results hadn't come back, but he confessed to that. And his mother, as we know in this crime, has said, my son is mentally ill, and he was just desperate to get a bunker, and he's been hearing voices, feeling that the CIA is after him, and so on. But why, since from 2020 to 2022, the mother couldn't have gotten him any psychiatric help?
Yeah, that's extremely troubling. I think she said she tried to, but couldn't. I don't know what happened there in the interim, but as a result of all of that, we now see what happened here. Let me ask you, Jason Jensen, are you surprised? Because the folks living in this house, we've looked at the video, it's very isolated. He's claiming that he's doing surveillance of it. And I'm just wondering why he didn't get spotted ahead of time. And was he really good at it? Maybe, you don't suspect that someone is conducting surveillance of your home, but that part surprised me just because of the way the home is isolated and protected and built with the safety features of this bunker and everything else. That he would have been perhaps spotted if he had been engaging in this surveillance over the time period prior to that home invasion.
Sure. I do surveillance all the time, and I don't think I've ever really been caught. A couple times you're parked in front of someone's house immediately, and that person has concerns, but usually the target doesn't realize you're surveilling them because you're either parked with your lights out, it's the winter time, sunset comes a lot earlier. So from the road, it looks like there's quite a distance to the home. So it's real easy to be just a car on the side of the road. You're busy with your life. You're not noticing what's going on outside. So for him to get away with surveillance, I think is very highly likely. The problem that I have is if he's mentally ill, how is he able to put together all this premeditation, all this planning? There was diagrams that he printed off, and doing surveillance and keeping tabs of who's up, what time to go to bed. That's a lot of planning to execute this. Obviously he failed, but clearly that doesn't really support a mental illness claim.
Yeah, well, there might be some level of mental illness, but it will not meet the legal standard of legal insanity. And I think you're right on target there, Jason. Kenneth Gray, I want you to take a listen to more testimony from Detective Allen here talking about where he went and what he did after the home invasion.
Mr. Gurley stated that after he fled the scene in 1266 Willis Branch in his vehicle, he traveled southbound on I-75 and traveled as far as the state of Florida. After reaching Florida, he managed to make his way northbound to try and travel back to Richmond, Kentucky in his vehicle. And his vehicle broke down on I-75 in the state of Georgia.
So there he is. He's fleeing, going down all the way down to Florida, heading his way back. Breaks down in Georgia. They find in the car gun, clothes, and rope. So, Kenneth, I'm going to ask you the same question that I'm going to ask Dr. Carol Lieberman to answer after you, which is, if he had been successful and they weren't prepared and the victim's dad didn't have a gun and he was able to kill everyone inside that home, what do you think he was just going to hang out in that bunker?
Well, that was his plan. Of course.
How do you think it actually plays out, though? Do you think he would have actually just like stayed there for as long as he could?
I think that he would have stayed there for a very brief time. Nuclear war would not have happened, and then his plan would change. He probably would have abandoned that and fled just like he did down to Florida. I think that the great thing in this case is the fact that not only do they have his confession, but they now also have the gun, the camouflage clothing, the nylon rope, all things to tie him in physically to this case. So you have both the confession and you have the evidence.
Absolutely. All right, Dr. Carol Lieberman, I'll give you the last word here. What do you think would have happened if he had been successful in this alleged plot to take over this bunker?
He might well have stayed there for a while, but then he might have gone to get his mother, who he lived with, because it was supposed to be for his friends and family. But I just want to point out one thing in terms of his mental illness. People who are mentally ill aren't necessarily unable to figure out surveillance and so on. And he went to the University of Hawaii on a scholarship, an ROTC scholarship, where he was studying bioengineering. So before he went downhill, he ended up leaving the university. He was discharged dishonorably from the Army and so on. He had a falling out from being a cadet of the week, as a matter of fact. So if he was studying bioengineering, he has this kind of obsessive compulsive way of being able to do surveillance and so on.
Dr. Carol Lieberman, always great to have you on the program. Appreciate your time tonight. Thank you. Kenneth Gray, Jason Jensen staying with us. When we come back, we'll open up tonight's unsolved case file. There they are. There were a couple, but they were also extremely talented musicians. He was a producer. She was a singer and an artist. And together they were getting ready to break into the music scene. Unfortunately, they were murdered back in 2007, so that never happened. But you know what else hasn't happened? No one has been held accountable tonight. We're asking for your help in solving the murders of Lala and Kulu.
real deal at drive10.com.
It is time to open up tonight's unsolved case file. This one goes back all the way to 2007, and we're talking about the murder of two young people. They were a couple, but they were also incredibly talented. And this is a loss for the families, but it's really a loss for all of us because they were never able to make and create all the wonderful music that they were already making. It's the story of Lala Brown and Jatan Claiborne, also known as Kool-Aid. I keep thinking Kool-Aid because I know that was the name that everyone gave him because of all the talent he had. Here's a look at their story. Please pay attention because tonight we're asking for your help.
It was their families who found their bodies days after they were murdered. Yolanda Lala Brown and Jatan Claiborne loved each other and they loved music.
We got one of Milltown's finest right now.
At the young age of 22, Jatan Kool-Aid Claiborne opened Loud Enough Music Studios in Milwaukee.
That was his thing, music.
Whether playing the keyboard or the drums, this music producer could always find a tune.
People love these beats that he would do.
We got the young producer Kool-Aid in the building.
And that's where he got the name Kool-Aid, because he would give you this great big old smile.
He was so excited about the studio.
But the beat stopped and gunshots echoed in the studio in October 2007.
What happened to Jatan was wrong.
Jatan's brother made the gruesome discovery.
He'll never forget what he saw. He'll never forget the smell and what he saw.
The producer, along with his girlfriend, R&B artist Yolanda Lala Brown, both shot to death inside the studio.
He had so much to offer the world, and his life was sniffed out by someone that just didn't care for human life.
We actually don't know what the motive, behind these murders were.
But police do believe the couple knew the killer. One of them opened the door to the studio. Nearby surveillance video shows the killer entering.
And moments later, you see a person running out of the studio.
Police said the entire crime happened in less than 2 minutes.
We can't even put into words the hurt.
Lala's father, William Brown, still mourns the loss of his beautiful, talented, self-made daughter.
She went out there and she read the books and found out how to do the music industry and try to get over with the bigger people. And this is what happened.
Milwaukee police say they have 2 suspects who are being held out of state on other charges. But so far, no one has ever been charged for the murders.
They think they got a pretty good case. I don't know what's holding up the DA right now.
Jatan Claiborne's mother says even as she waits for answers, the family refuses to turn the focus today on something negative.
I will not let this go unsolved. I am going to speak up.
She says she won't let their names die. Jatan!
Someone knows something. They need to pick up the phone tonight. 414-933-4444. 414-933-4444. That person with information could still be in Milwaukee. They could be anywhere in the country. So many years later. Too many years later. Do the right thing tonight, folks. Still with us, retired FBI Special Agent, Senior Lecturer at the University of New Haven, Kenneth Gray, Private Investigator Jason Jensen, and joining us now by phone in Buffalo, New York, special guest, Jatan's mom, Dinah Chambers, is with us. Dinah, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Start, please, with the smile. The smile. Tell me about the smile. I saw a clip of it in some of the footage that we have, but you got to see it every day.
Yes. First of all, thank you, Vinnie. I appreciate the time and the space you have given to my family and me and able to, for us to find justice for this case. We thank you so much. But that smile. Jatan had a smile that had no ending. Every time you saw him, he was constantly smiling or always looking for the upbeat next moment in his life. He was so energetic and outgoing, and the testosterone just didn't stop in him. He was outgoing and outspoken. Jatan had a smile that would just last for hours in your mind once you've seen it. He always enjoyed life. I appreciate my son's smile because that's what I think of when I see his pics today. All of his pictures, he has this big smile. So, Vinnie, I miss his smile. I was excited and saddened today as I get to this moment because there's been no justice for my baby, you know. And I said I wasn't going to do this. I'm trying not to. But when you think about the time frame that has gone on, Vinnie, and I'm going to let you continue to ask the questions, but that smile lives in his children. That smile is in both of his boys. And I want you to pick up from here, Vinnie, so I don't go in where you want me to. But I miss my baby's smile.
Dinah, you're going exactly where I want you to go, because I want people who are listening tonight to understand who he is, who he was, what is missed, and why getting justice this year, this month, this day is so important. Let me ask you one other question about him, okay? Because I want people to know him. I want them to understand. Where'd the musical talent come from?
Jatan's talent was naturally, I have to say. I birthed him with that, and he was should I say, his talent was based upon the part where he went to school, high school, and became drum major, because I bought him this keyboard, Vinnie, when he was 9. He had to be about 9 years old. I noticed he had these piano fingers, and he was always playing the piano or some kind of, if we go around an instrument in the church or something like that, and he would just touch the piano. So I bought I bought him this keyboard, and Jatan took off from there. He became drum major in high school. He was in one of the finest churches in Los Angeles, California, where we live and where I went to. We moved there from the Wisconsin area, and he was, they called him the music minister. He helped him out, assisted him. He wrote all the music notes for all the instruments in the church, and he just evolved from there. And he kept going, and then he got involved in R&B and all types of gender, coming back to Milwaukee, opening up the studio, and he just kept going. He just evolved into this magnificent producer, as well as a father, as a son, as a brother, a nephew, and a cousin. He a promoter. He did all this. He just did it. Jatan had gifts, and he is so missed from these gifts. He didn't get a chance to see his children grow up. His children, he had one that was 3 at the time. He was murdered, which was Jatan Jr., Jatan Jeremiah, and then he had Isaiah, who she was pregnant with him at the time of the murder, and Isaiah is now 14, I believe, wow. 14, and Jatan is 17 years young. And I tell you, these boys don't know their dad, and it's so unfair. All I have is the pics from his childhood to try to engulf them in his life, to try to embrace them to who their dad was. And then, of course, they see the media, what's going on, and how to implement that in their lives and not make them bitter, but make them better people,
Absolutely.
So that's all I have,
Absolutely, Dinah. Dinah, let me just get a quick thought from Kenneth Gray and Jason Jensen. Jason Jensen, we only have about a minute left here, so if you and Kenneth can give us your thoughts tonight on solving this case and getting justice.
Sure. As I say it, there was a lot happening the last few days before this murder. They were robbed the night before. Over $10,000 worth of studio equipment was stolen, and it was reported that Lala was reporting to their salon hairstylist that they were receiving threats. So there's got to be someone out there that knows this history, knew that they were being threatened and whatnot.
Kenneth Gray?
The suspects that Milwaukee PD came up with are being held in a federal penitentiary. The district attorney refused to move on this case. Somebody inside the pen there might be willing to talk. So that is a place to go to, in my opinion, is to try to get information to see what they're talking about inside the pen about this case.
Absolutely. Kenneth Gray, Jason Jensen, thank you so much. Dinah Chambers, So great to speak with you. Our thoughts are with your family, and we will stay on this story until your family gets justice. Thank you so much. Still ahead.
In San Diego, California, officers executing an eviction notice are confronted by a woman with a large knife. We break down this intense video with our own law enforcement experts. And in Flagler County, Florida, first responders at the scene of a suspected arson are attacked by the suspected arsonist. We take a closer look during Crime Time.
Download the app today.
It is crime time here on Closing Arguments. Let's bring in tonight's guests. Joining me, former police officer Joe Ested. Joe is also a former sheriff's deputy and police investigator. He served in Afghanistan as a police advisor and is the author of the book Police Brutality Matters and the host of the Police Brutality Matters show on YouTube. Also with us, jumping in there kind of quick, former senior special agent with the Drug Enforcement Administration and the founder and CEO of the Global Security Group, David Katz. David was an instructor at the DEA FBI Academy in Quantico, Virginia, where he taught firearms and tactics to thousands of federal agents, state and local police officers, SWAT teams, and specialized military units. He's a corporate security expert and is particularly well known for his active shooter prevention and response programs. Also is the author of the Executive's Guide to Personal Security. Joe and David, great to see you both tonight. We're going to begin in San Diego, California, San Diego County Sheriff's Office, where an eviction escalates into violence. Let's watch.
Hi.
What is it?
Are you Yanli?
Yes.
Okay, here's a notice to evict. Okay?
What?
It's your notice for. Put the knife down right now or I'm gonna. Put your knife down. Put the knife down. Put the knife down right now. Put the knife down right now.
How do I know you're an intruder?
15 Adam 5, one at gunpoint. Code cover. Put the gun down, ma'am. I'm gonna shoot you. Put the gun down. Put the gun down or I will shoot you. 15 Adam 5, code cover. One at gunpoint with a knife. Put the gun down right now. Put the gun down right now. Now, drop the knife.
I'm holding a knife.
Drop the knife, ma'am. You will get shot if you come at me with that knife. I will shoot you.
I'm not afraid.
Do you understand that?
I'm not coming.
Okay, I will shoot you. You understand? Put the knife down. Put the knife down. Put the knife down.
How did you get into my building?
I walked in. Put down the knife right now. Put down the knife right now. Ma'am, you will be shot. Do you understand that? Put down the gun or you will be shot. Ma'am, shh, drop the knife.
You have not even shown your badge.
Don't. Just drop the knife. Drop the knife, please. Don't make me do this.
No, I'm not dropping.
Drop the knife now. I am not a fake police officer. Drop the knife. Drop the 15 Adam 5. She's barricaded in 503.
Hey, this is the Sheriff's Department with the San Diego Police Department. We're both here. I need you to put the knife down and open the door. We're not intruders, we're the police.
Dark. Show me your hands. Where you at?
Where you at?
Sheriff Department. Go. Hands. Let me see your hands. Hands. Come on, your hands up. Come on, your hands up. Bean bag, bean bag, bean bag. Put your hands up. Come here. Get down. Get down. Drop the knife. Back up.
I got stabbed.
All right, let's talk about this. First of all, how dangerous are these eviction notice situations? I mean, how often do they turn deadly and how were things handled here? Joe Ested, I'll start with you.
Dave, good to see you. Vinny, these things can go from 0 to 100 instantly. And you know, you're serving a eviction notice. A lot of emotions are at stake, and people's emotions are high, so it can go real bad real fast. His initial approach it was kind of lackadaisy. Once he realized that the female, she had a knife, all of a sudden he pulled his gun. I would like to see him get a little bit more distance between him and the subject. You're told to create that distance to buy you more time. He was still close. He started the normal commands being real aggressive. Then he realized he was dealing with somebody that wasn't real stable in the mind, so he started to bring his tone down, which I applaud that, because we don't see that a lot. He notified the assisting units. Once the assisting units arrived, because she closed the door, went back into the apartment. This is where it went bad for me. Everybody that responded, everybody went inside this particular residence. You lead with your beanbag guy. Like, I understand you want to use least lethal force as much as you can to save a life, but this individual, this female, was posing a danger, a huge danger. She had a butcher knife. So you always want to match the threat level to what you're dealing with at the time. You're dealing with a person with a large knife. You don't want to match it with a beanbag. And then they lead with the beanbag. The officer with the beanbag actually goes forward as he's shooting the beanbag at the subject. Beanbag versus knife. Knife's going to win all the time, every time. So you had multiple officers confined in this one little spot. The distance was very close, because I definitely wouldn't use a beanbag with this type of scenario. Then when she started to come out, all the officers are trying to pile out to get out of the apartment. Everybody's trying to get out of the way of getting stabbed. And she was able to actually stab an officer. So the tactics was horrible on this whole incident. I give these guys a definite F. I'm glad the officer was able to actually, survive this encounter, but this injury could have been prevented on the officers.
David Katz, I saw you nodding your head along there for most of this. Your thoughts?
Yeah, this was a disaster from the inception. The initial encounter was very, very bad, but I want to kind of focus in when they all go into the apartment. I counted 9. And then you had the K-9 officer in that tiny little apartment. So I don't know if you remember, a couple weeks back, we covered a story where the police ended up shooting someone with a knife, but prior to that, they attempted to use less than lethal. And what the officer in that case did, he said, okay, you've got the 40 millimeter. You stand here. I'm lethal force. I'm going to stand here. This is our route. If we have to back up, this is where we're going to retreat to. If he moves forward, you can take the shot. If he moves past this point, I will engage. You saw none of this. There was no communication. And Joe makes a great point. When you're leading, if you look at one point, you had the officer providing cover with the handgun. Then you had the officer with the beanbag. For whatever reason, the officer with the beanbag decides to advance down the hallway. Now there's no lethal cover. So she comes out, and by the way, he's firing rounds, missing her apparently because she has no reaction, and she comes out. Then the 9 people all try to hurry back out of the apartment. They fall over each other. When lethal force becomes necessary, in other words, after she stabs one officer and is leaning over the officer to continue the attack, then they open up. So the officers who are engaging her with lethal force are firing at her with their co-workers on the ground within the line of fire. Poor communication, poor tactics, and that is not how you use less than lethal force. It's an alternative that you try to employ, but in this case, absolutely poorly done.
Again, great insight and perspective. And a lot of things I wasn't even thinking about. Joe Stead, David Katz staying with us. When we come back, more crime time. We've got an arson suspect attacking a firefighter at the scene of this alleged arson. That is next. Welcome back to our Crime Time segment. Still with us, Joe Ested and David Katz. Our next story comes to us from the Flagler County Sheriff's Office down in Florida. An arson suspect attacks a firefighter.
Started a fire in the house.
Okay.
It's burning down. My house is burning down.
Okay, I need everybody out.
Everybody but the dog.
Hey, yeah, dude, we stay in your house. Stay right there. That's the wrong answer, sir. Down to the ground, down to the ground. Hands down back. He takes his cane, he's acting like a gun with it. Fire comes around the corner and he almost hits, I forget which one, he almost hits the basic top fire department guys, so I step in. When he sees me, he just rears back.
Kind of unbelievable here. We have emergency responders getting attacked, but I guess if you're a suspected arsonist, you're going to get mad at the guys who are putting out the fire. Joe Ested, David Katz back with us. David, your thoughts about this quick little incident? You got to be ready at any moment.
Yeah, well, you know, we're actually putting together an active shooter training program for firefighters, because we've had situations recently where firefighters have been fired on and even, you know, unfortunately fatally. This case, I think, is a little different. That he seemed, my first read of that guy is it was a mental aided case. He might have started the fire, but he didn't seem coherent. He could have been, you know, what's called an emotionally disturbed person. He could have been a diabetic with a you know, altered mental state. So this didn't seem like an arsonist trying to prevent the firefighters from responding to the fire. It seemed like he's just, you know, in the industry he's called a wacko.
There you go. All right, Joe Ested, let's do this. And David Katz, I've got some video from the Benton County Sheriff's Office. It's an amazing rescue. As we watch this, interested in your thoughts, Joe. Here they are approaching a car on fire.
The first thing you want to do is try to see if you can check for victims. Is anybody in that fire? If anybody's not in the fire, in that vehicle, if anybody's in that vehicle, you're trying to get them out as quickly as possible. As we said time and time again in the past, officers don't receive a lot of fire training, if any. So when you see officers performing like this is straight up instant and common sense. So try to save a life as quick as possible is what you see here, and the officers did a really good job doing that.
Hey, David Katz, I'm looking at those flames underneath the car. That would scare me to death that the whole thing's just going to go up.
Well, the car, I mean, it's not like the movies where the car explodes, but a car can become fully involved very, very quickly. I remember when I was working in the task force on Long Island, we had a Suffolk County detective, Brian Laskowski. He just was driving home, I think, one night, car on fire, and he tried to pull the guy out. He burned his hands severely. You know, it's just, you know, Joe is exactly right. Law enforcement officers are not given adequate training in that, but they do it anyway.
Joe Ested, you know, this is the other part, right? That we see so many different facets of what you're doing, but just in these last two stories, and one, emergency responders going to a fire, get attacked by the accused arsonist, and here you are going to another fire and literally saving a life as we watch it.
Yeah, it's always different. So it can go from, just like you described, saving to now actually being attacked. So the dynamics of the job, that's why we prepare, that's why we train, that's why we're always trying to stay ahead of the curve when we're dealing with these incidents.
And David Katz, I'll give you the final word tonight. And you know, we try to show the vast array. We show sometimes police officers not doing the right thing. We show them literally saving lives. Do you think police and law enforcement does enough themselves to let the public know what they're doing day in and day out? You have about 15 seconds.
15 seconds?
Yeah.
They don't, because that's not what they're seeking to do. But I think at this point in history, I think that would be a nice thing for a change.
Yeah, I think they all get some good PR, because you guys are doing it, guys, and men and women are doing it day in and day out, just like Joe Ested and David Katz are doing for us. Thank you both so much. Great to see you. We'll see you again real soon. When we come back, folks, I need your help once again. Don't go away.
Deathbed.
All right, folks, brand new trial starting tomorrow. Make sure you're watching Ted Rowland's first thing in the morning. The NBA star murder trial, Lorenzen Wright, finally getting his day in court as a victim of murder. His mother will be there. Before we go, I have a picture to show you of a missing child, Olga Mejia, missing since January 20th, just 14 years old, out of Tracy, California. If you see Olga, please pick up the phone, call 911. 1-800-THE-LOST, or you can call the Tracy, California Police Department. Let them know. Let's see if we can get Olga back home where she needs to be. That's it for tonight. I'm Vinnie Politan. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great night, and don't forget to hug the kids.
Up next, a state politician mysteriously dies after her impeachment trial. Experts don't know why.
I personally have not known a woman 50 years old drop dead of a heart attack.
A microscopic clue points towards foul play.
No one could account for this puncture wound in her left hip.
Were her political enemies to blame?